Hello, hi, my name is Mo, and before I get started on the video for today, I want to just quickly say thank you so much for 30k. I really appreciate that. Quite overwhelming. I've just moved out of my hall and I'm now couch surfing for the next 2 weeks, so life is a little bit hectic, but I finally have a video for you. I've been working on this for a wee while, so I hope you enjoy. As you can see from the title, today we are going to be talking about cuties. I doubt I'll need to explain it, but in case you have been living under a rock, what is Cuties? Cuties is a 2020 French coming-of-age film written and directed by a woman called Maïmouna de Cour, or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, it's French, but I think that's how you pronounce it. The plot revolves around a French Senegalese girl who feels trapped between the traditional values of her Muslim family and internet culture. According to the filmmakers, Cuties is a critique on the hypersexualization of young girls. But according to Twitter, it's literal child porn. So, which is it? Is it a daring critique on society, or is it pedo bait? Well, that is what I want to explore today. I guess now it's a good time to put a trigger warning. I will be discussing topics such as paedophilia and child sexualization, so if they are topics you are sensitive to, I advise you watch with care. So Cuties was released internationally on Netflix on the 9th of September 2020. It might surprise you because the internet was having none of it, but it actually received pretty positive reviews from critics. The film actually won a directing award at the Sundance Film Festival. The intense backlash it received started online before it had even been released due to Netflix's marketing campaign. I think you can get a pretty good idea from this alone as to why people were so outraged by their promotional material. And I mean, they clearly wanted to pander to a specific audience here. How this poster managed to get through Netflix's marketing team is beyond me. You would think that at some point, at least somewhere down the line, somebody would have stopped and said, wait, is this not like a little bit, I don't know, wrong? But apparently not. So anyway, before the film has even been released, Netflix is under fire. All eyes are on Cuties. That sounds a little sinister, given the situation. Anyway, everyone was waiting to see whether this film was as bad as the poster suggests, and to spoil the suspense in advance, yes, yeah, it is. It is as bad as the poster suggests. Probably worse, actually. So basically, I saw this whole controversy and I went, I want to see what this is about. So I watched Cuties. I subjected myself to an hour and a half of intense discomfort just so I could make this video for you guys. And I guess, regrettably, to satisfy my own morbid curiosity, but that doesn't sound so good, so we're just gonna say I did it for you guys. But anyway, what will I do today? I will quickly run through some things, different plot points in the film, etc, etc, and basically just break down a lot of the things that have made people so outraged. So our protagonist, if you can really call her that. No, you can't actually. Our main character. Our main character is an 11-year-old girl called Ami. She's an immigrant originally from Senegal and now lives in Paris with her mum, her aunt and her 2 brothers. Like all families, they have some problems. Ami is waiting for her dad to move over from Senegal and join the family, but eventually finds out that when he does join them, he'll be bringing a second wife, much to the distress of her dear mum. They are a very traditional Muslim family, and Ami feels stifled by all the restrictions this places on her. So the film begins, and Ami sees this girl, Angelica, dancing in the laundry of the apartment complex. 5 minutes in, and we've already got a child in a crop top and leather trousers dancing seductively. I don't really know how else to describe it. Now, you could argue that this is fine and innocent, I guess. I mean, she's just dancing and it is only clothes, and on some level, I could agree with that, but we have to look at this broadly. Given the context of the rest of the film, I think it's interesting that we are seeing stuff like this early on. The start of a film sets the scene for the viewer. It builds the world, it paints the picture of what we might expect going forward. Principles laid down at the start of the film will inevitably be expanded on. Even if the film is god-awful, it will do that because it's really difficult not to. If you don't expand on the ideas you presented at the start, your film is going nowhere. And even the worst films usually go somewhere, it's just not somewhere very good. So anyway, the reason I'm mentioning this is because as a viewer, we know the themes presented to us at the start will be built upon. We know the stakes are going to be heightened as the film progresses. So we must ask ourselves, what is this communicating to us? If this is what we see now, what are we going to see later on? To be less tactful and, well, blunt, if a paedophile were to be watching this, what message do you think they are getting? Because I would say that this scene serves, whether intentional or not, to affirm their expectations. It lets them know that they are going to see children portrayed in a sexualized way. It lets them know the film is going to visually depict these things rather than just imply them. So Ami just kind of watches Angelica. It's a bit creepy, but I guess she's interested, so whatever. Ami then goes to school and is talking to one of the teachers, and suddenly all the kids in the playground just freeze, for no reason whatsoever. I guess it's supposed to be a funny, practical joke, but it's just kind of weird and reminds me of Children of Earth.
Now come on, sweetheart. People are staring at you.
But anyway, the ringleaders to this joke are a group of girls that call themselves the Cuties. Angelica is one of them, and these girls stand out from the other kids because they are dressed in really revealing clothes. I just want to touch on the whole wearing revealing clothes thing because I don't want it to come across as though I'm not okay with girls wearing what they want. Girls can wear whatever the fuck they want, you know? If you want to dress in really revealing clothes, go for it. All power to you. But it is different when these girls are 11 and you're showing them in compromising positions. And in addition to that, it's not actually about the clothes themselves. Clothes are not inherently sexual. But we have to take into account the implications of such clothing and, unfortunately, the way other people react to them. We have to be aware of the fact that creepy people who see young girls wearing clothing like this will want to take advantage of it. It's a really sad reality, but that is the world we live in. And we have to be conscious of the fact that dressing young girls in this way, especially in a film, is just not responsible, and it's not taking into account the child's best interests. But anyway, Ami is transfixed by the Cuties, you know, she's never seen girls her age act like this before, so she watches them from afar, desperately wanting to be a part of their little group. But the Cuties are not very nice at all. Like, they literally throw stones at Ami's head because they catch her watching them dance.
Hey, there's someone watching us up there! Hey!
What?
Hey, you little shit!
What?
I swear to God, I'm gonna fuck her up!
One of the stones hits her, and they all just start laughing. Like, it could have caused Ami serious damage, but they all think it's funny, which is a bit alarming. The next day when they see Ami at school and see she's got a big cut on her forehead, they think that's extra funny. So these girls are practicing for a dance competition, and it's implied one of the main reasons for their behaviour, you know, revealing outfits and inappropriate dances, is that they feel they need to act and look a certain way in order to compete with their older competitors who are doing similar things. And you know, that isn't actually a bad message. If the film had an ounce of subtlety, this could have presented some interesting and powerful themes to explore. Many young girls feel like they have to act a certain way in order to be liked and to succeed. But unfortunately, as we all know by now, deep and meaningful discussion on sensitive topics is not what we got here. So moving forward. At one point, the Cuties tell Ami to go and film this dude they find attractive as he's pissing so they can see his penis.
Dare you to take a picture of his thing.
You crazy?
Yeah, go on. It'll be funny. Come on.
It'll be fun. Go on, go on.
Do it.
It's really weird, really creepy, definitely sexual harassment, but I guess it's okay because they're children. That was a joke, by the way. It's most certainly not okay. And I mean, the film doesn't really act like it's okay as such, but personally I would have liked them to be clearer about the fact it's not okay. This is a criticism I have for the entire film, and it's something that will continue to pop up. Cuties does this thing where it's like they'll depict something bad, and they'll do just enough to let you know that they think it's bad and they're not endorsing it, but they won't ever actually criticize what they're showing in any meaningful way. They won't go into depth about what's happened, they'll just be like, Yeah, that's not very good, but there'll be no real consequences and it will never be addressed again in the film. So here Army just goes along with what they're asking and tries to film him peeing. Keep in mind, these girls have been pretty awful to her this entire time, and she's just like, yeah, I'll sexually harass this guy for you. I suppose, if you think about it, it's not entirely unrealistic. When you're bullied, or even if you just want to fit in, you often do things you're not necessarily comfortable with because others tell you to, or because you think it will make them like you more. I think the problem here is probably just that it's framed very weirdly, but I don't know. Let's move on. There are bigger things to talk about. So Army continues to watch the cuties with complete admiration and envy as they rehearsed for their big dance-off. She eventually manages to semi-incorporate herself into the group by filming their dance, but she isn't really one of them, and they won't let her dance with them. Eventually, however, the cuties have a falling out, which results in Yasmin being kicked out of the group, and Army takes this as an opportunity to dance in her place. Meanwhile, at home, Army is acting out. She steals a phone from her cousin to watch adult content and steals her mum's money to buy revealing clothing, desperately trying to assimilate into this hypersexualized environment. I just want to stop here for a moment and say the development in this film is really terrible. Relationship development, character development, plot development, everything. I mean, for one, the cuties are really mean to Army, and then she just suddenly becomes friends with them. It doesn't feel authentic. But that's just a minor pet peeve, I guess. This film is filled with minor pet peeves. Get it? Because they're minors. Every transition is so abrupt and shallow. In one scene, she's a quiet, curious girl completely out of her depth, and the next she's become one of the cuties. We never see any consequences come from her Islamic community for her acting the way she does. It's like they don't even notice her transition until suddenly they do. It's made even more unbelievable as a portion of the film's third act is centered around how Army, quote-unquote, doesn't know when to stop. It's to the point where even the cuties are saying, "You've gone too far." But this moment isn't earned. The build-up isn't there. It's like we've just catapulted from the cuties telling her, "You need to grow up," to "You've gone too far," with zero development. And there is an uncomfortable irony in this messaging of, "You've taken it too far," because that's exactly what the director has done. She has taken it too far. So on that note, I want to discuss in more depth the ways in which this film sexualizes children. The film takes every opportunity it can to draw attention to these girls' bodies. It's subtle things, like the way the film is shot, to more overt things, like when one of the cuties literally slaps Army's butt and says she's flat all over and she can't tell her front from her back.
Oh my god, check out her booty. Look how flat she is. She's flat all over. I can't tell her front from her back.
The dances are filmed in extremely sexualized ways. There are constant close-up shots of the girls' bodies, and it's something that really got to me and made me really uncomfortable. Like, it's just incredibly inappropriate. Like, it just zooms right in on these kids' chests and crotches. It just zooms right in on their butts as they twerk, and it's just... no. Like, it's just no. No. I don't think I really need to explain why that is a no. Well, I hope I don't anyway. I don't think I need to explain why filming sexually suggestive dances with lots of close-up shots of children's butts and chests is completely inappropriate. It's just so freaking uncomfortable to watch, and I felt like I was watching something I shouldn't be watching. There's even this one scene where these girls, who are a great deal older than Army, literally just pull down her trousers, and there's a fucking close-up shot of Army's, you know, in her underwear. I fucking can't with this film. And I'm not saying you can't make a film on these issues. I think you can make a film on any subject. And I definitely think you can make a film like this without it being pedo bait. But that's just not what they've done. If they had cut out the provocative dances, if they had just implied things were happening rather than depict them, if they had been more clear and critical with their messages, I don't think I would have a problem with this film. The reason I have such a problem with it, and the reason I think everybody else does too, is because it's shot like pedo bait. Like, it just is. In order to make a film like this work, you can't depict children in that way. Because if you do, you're no longer raising awareness. You are partaking in the very action you are meant to be criticising. You are causing more harm. You cannot say you want to raise awareness for child sexualisation and then sexualise children. You just can't do that. You are not helping, you are doing the antithesis of that. It only gets worse, too. When her cousin, who she stole the phone from, catches her with it, she runs off, locks herself in the bathroom, and frantically just takes photos of her genitals. She takes photos of her genitals in the bathroom and uploads them to the internet before giving the phone back.
What are you doing in there?
To be clear, you do not see anything. The filmmakers at least knew not to cross that boundary, although that is a very low bar. The issues I have with this scene feed back into my other criticisms for this film. It occurs just after the incident I mentioned earlier, in which a group of older girls pull Army's trousers down. This, of course, would be extremely humiliating, and there's an emphasis on the fact that Army is wearing children's underwear. And I suppose what this scene was attempting to do was show how Army was trying to push back and prove she was grown up. There are other messages in there too around the loss of innocence and the dangers of children having unsupervised access to the internet. These messages are fine, but as with the rest of the film, it completely misses the mark. I don't really understand why they included it at all. If they had done this with some subtlety, some tact, it could have been a very powerful and upsetting moment, but it just wasn't. It felt uncomfortable and jarring, but not in a good way, in a what the fuck, this has come out of nowhere kind of way. There was no lead up to this moment. I think the filmmakers assumed that the humiliation at school was enough to push her to do this, but as a viewer, it just wasn't. For something like this to work, we would have needed so much more. We would have needed to see Army panics, struggling with her emotions. We would have needed to see that deliberation so we could actually understand how lost she was. But we don't get any of that. It just suddenly happens and the audience is sitting there like, where did this come from? And in context with the rest of the film, you're just left with this sour taste in your mouth. In response to Army's behaviour, her mum and auntie sort of exercise her by throwing splashes of cold water. Army starts shaking, and at first I thought she was having some kind of seizure, but then the camera zooms out and you see she's twerking. Because of all the water, Army is soaking wet, as is the floor around her, which just makes the imagery even more uncomfortable. I think it was supposed to be a metaphor, like she was shaking as the sinner inside her fought against the exorcism, yet at the same time as she was shaking, she was twerking and partaking in the sinful act. But again, it just misses the mark. I think what the director fails to understand is that there are different ways of making your audience uncomfortable. There is a huge difference between making your audience confront the harsh realities of life and making them watch a child twerk. Your film may be harrowing, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Ironically, an issue this film has is its complete and utter lack of consequences and stakes. The film acts as though Auntie is some sort of ticking time bomb ready to explode at any moment, but we just don't see that. When Army makes a mistake, she cowers in fear, but nothing ever happens. Neither her mum or Auntie ever do anything bad enough to make us invest in the stakes, especially as Army's behaviour deteriorates. She gets worse and worse, yet her family never really does anything particularly egregious. The weird water exorcism is pretty much the worst we get. The environment is toxic and stifling, don't get me wrong. There is a lot to explore there. It's clear Army feels lost and alone since she doesn't meet their ideals, and that could lead to some really interesting explorations. But the film never goes there. It acts as though her family could beat her at any given moment, but because we never see any indication of that, the viewer is not engaged. The film somehow manages to destroy their own stakes by treating them as if they're something they're not. They turn them into a hollow attempt to make us sympathise with the main character, and it's just so half-assed, it doesn't work. But anyway, let's get back to the storyline. After Army posts the compromising photos online, a fight breaks out between her and the rest of the Cuties, who subsequently ban her from performing at the dance competition with them. Yasmin is welcomed back into the group and is set to perform in Army's place. However, Army decides she wants to be in the competition no matter the cost. So she catches up to Yasmin, who is on her way to the show, and pushes her into the lake. Yasmin, as it turns out, cannot swim, and she is literally drowning while Army just stands there watching, trying to decide whether or not a dance competition and popularity is worth Yasmin's life. Yasmin luckily manages to grab onto a boy, so she's fine. But it's just like, oh my god. Like, Army? Is Army a psychopath or what? Is that the vibes you're going for? Again, it's out of nowhere. Army's been, pretty horrible for a wee bit now, but nothing that would indicate she was capable of something like that. But anyway, she runs off, goes back to the Cuties, and they're like, oh, what the fuck, where's Yasmin? The dance routine is shot in line with the rest of the film, that is to say, incredibly inappropriately, but then they just forget about Yasmin in the space of 2 seconds because, I don't know, they're running late and they decide that Yasmin wasn't a good dancer anyway.
We'll just have to let her dance with us. She's better than Yasmin anyway.
Yeah,
Come on.
she's much better.
Halfway through the routine, however, Army bursts into tears as she starts thinking about her mother. Army rushes off stage before the performance is over and runs off home to her mum. The film ends with a shot of Army with her hair down in jeans and a t-shirt and playing jump rope with a group of girls her age. The closing shot is pretty, and it probably would have been a good closing shot if the film had actually been, good. But instead, it just feels so contrived. It's supposed to symbolise her letting go of her regressive traditions while simultaneously freeing herself from this hypersexualised adult environment. She's simply being a child. Except it's not like that. It's not like that at all. The film presents these two worlds and the cultures they represent as this sort of dichotomy. Army's only escape is to let go of them both. But that's just not the case. Both can coexist. It's like we're given this juxtaposition between regression and hypersexualization, but of course that isn't real. The opposing worlds collide with each other, yet somehow the film never manages to meaningfully explore either one of them. So when the film ends with Army finding this peace in playing with other children, it's not earned. There was nothing that led us to this moment. Quite simply, the ending wasn't deserved. So now we've run through the whole film, let's talk about the fallout. What happened afterwards? How did the critics react? And how does this differ to that of the general public? Because the disparity is tremendous. If we look at Rotten Tomatoes, we see this film holds an approval rating of 87% based on critic reviews, with critics even describing it as a thoughtful look into the intricacies of girlhood in the modern age. Cuties is a coming-of-age film that confronts its themes with poignancy and nuance. Whatever criteria they were basing that on is beyond me, but whatever. Anyway, if we contrast that 87% with the audience reviews, we start to get a very different picture. It's 15%. It's 15%. The audience reviews are 15%. How the fuck do you get a 72% difference? How? Well, to find out, we're gonna have to look a little deeper. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's look at what happened when Cuties first aired. Prior to its Netflix release, the film premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and was released in France without any backlash or controversy. However, a tidal wave of backlash ensued once Netflix bought the rights to Cuties and released their promotional poster and trailer. The poster and trailer, might I add, were different to what was used during the film's original release in France. After this hit the public, Netflix received a massive onslaught of criticism for sexualizing these 11-year-old girls. In response, Netflix replaced the poster with a new one stating, "This was not an accurate representation of the film, so the image and description has been updated." But of course, while you can change the image and description, you can't change the entire film. The film still includes countless scenes in which 11-year-old girls wear revealing outfits and perform provocative dance routines and touch their genitals, as well as everything else we went over before, so of course, the backlash didn't stop there. One day after the film's international release, hashtag cancel Netflix started trending on Twitter. Thousands of people cancelled their Netflix subscriptions, and the service saw a cancellation rate that was 8 times higher than average, and it directly coincided with the release of the film. The National Centre on Sexual Exploitation actually came forward and condemned Netflix for giving a platform to a film that has permitted the sexual exploitation of children, and they called for the company to cut the sexually exploitative scenes or stop hosting the film at all. So yeah, Netflix was in the shits. US Senator Josh Hawley sent out a tweet inviting Netflix to discuss the film before Congress. US Senator Mike Lee sent out a letter directly to a Netflix CEO, Reed Hastings, and demanded further clarification regarding the film genre, which I think is a very strange way to put it, because whatever the genre is, it's still wrong, but okay. US House Representative Tulsi Gabbard explicitly called the film child porn, which I think is a pretty stupid thing to say actually, because even though I find the film repulsive, it is not child porn, and it's not close to child porn, and claiming it is just disrespectful and undermines the experiences of victims who have actually been through these things. However, she did go on to say that it would whet the appetite of paedophiles and help fuel the child sex trafficking trade. And I think that claim has a lot more weight to it, and I'm inclined to agree. US Senator Ted Cruz, not to be confused with Tom Cruise, which is what I did when I was writing this script. It really threw me off for a good 10 minutes. But anyway, he sent a letter to the Department of Justice to investigate whether Netflix, its executives, or the filmmakers violated any federal laws against the production and distribution of child pornography. From what I could find, nothing really came of this, since the film does not actually contain child pornography or any explicit nudity of a minor. Netflix, in their almighty wisdom, decided to respond by defending Cuties, claiming the film was just a piece of social commentary against the sexualization of young children, and actually encouraged people to watch it. The film's director claimed that those who were upset by her film had just not seen it yet, and had the wrong perception due to the controversy. I realise that the people who have started this controversy haven't yet seen the film. Netflix has apologised to the public and to myself. I'm hoping these people will watch the movie now that it's out. I'm eager to see their reaction when they realise that we're both on the same side of this fight against young children's hypersexualisation. My question to her would be, if you're so against the sexualisation of young children, as you claim to be, why would you dress underage girls in completely inappropriate and over-sexualised clothing? Why would you include scenes that deliberately sexualise and draw attention to their bodies? Why would you do these things when the harm it could cause is common knowledge? Why would you claim to be against the sexualisation of children while dismissing any concerns around paedophilia? These scenes didn't need to be there. They could have easily been rewritten or cut out, and the plot would not have been compromised. So what is your excuse? Because honestly, I would love to hear it. I mean, let's be real. What is this really? It's nothing but weak excuses and damage control manufactured to justify Netflix streaming this on their platform. Netflix just wants money, and they got it too. Because despite the controversy, or perhaps because of it, the film made it to the top 5 on Netflix in the US, as well as the top 10 in 17 other countries. So is that it then? Is it all for nothing? I don't know really. I started writing this section in the hopes that I would have some answers. But I don't. I don't know why the critics rated this film so highly. Honestly, it upsets me. I mean, I highly doubt all of them were paedophiles, but I'm not going to pretend like I don't think that played a part in it. I suspect some of them just fell into the same pit as the director. You know, they're just so frickin' pretentious. They can't distinguish between a film that makes you uncomfortable because it is good and a film that makes you uncomfortable because it is bad. I suspect this will not be the last we hear of this situation, and I really do hope something will come of it. I see massive companies escape accountability all the time, and it frustrates me so much. But at the end of the day, I'm just a teenager from New Zealand, so what can I do? I don't know, but hey, maybe this video will help, at least in some part, in its own way. Hello, I just wanted to do a quick insert here because I was just editing and I realised I didn't really address this as much as I would have liked to. A lot of the responses and backlash around Cuties has been very politicised. It turned into this strange war of, oh, the right, the left is so pro-paedophilia or whatever. Now, it's no secret that I'm a leftist, but can I just say, if you're turning a situation like this into an opportunity to dunk on your political opponent, you are a piece of shit, because it's not about you, and it's not about your political opponent, it is about the safety of children. People like Ted Cruz claiming that there was child nudity or, you know, pornography or whatever in the film, that's not helpful, because it's not true. Criticise Cuties for what they've actually done, because they've done a lot of shit, but it's not child porn. Why lie? I hate the lying in this situation because it's so unnecessary. I've just broken down Cuties for you, and as I hope you can see, it is an incredibly problematic film. There is a lot of things wrong with it, and I don't think it should be on Netflix, and I don't think it should have ever been made. I think it is exploitation. And for all the people trying to make it this great big sort of political war thing, you're not as virtuous as you'd like to think, mate. Your heart is not in the right place. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, so. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's the first scripted video I've done for a wee while. Feel free to subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm Cops Hate Mo. I'm Cops Hate Mo on everything. You can also pledge to my Patreon. All links are in the description. But yeah, I hope you have a nice day. Stay safe, and I'll see ya.